Hey everybody, wanted to follow up and send this video out as soon as possible today because I know it's Tuesday and we're getting into the reading. Wanted to just make some comments about Erikson, then a little bit about Chickering and Reisser, and then just a note about theory itself. And so let me start out with Erikson's model that you're reading about. Wanted to just let you know a couple of things. One, it is going to set the stage for some of our conversations later in the class when we start talking about emerging adult theory. Erikson's model is sort of a sequential stage theory, and when we get to Jeffrey Arnett's model of emerging adulthood, you'll find that he sort of nests that theory in between stages 4 and 5 of Erikson's model. So I just want to kind of give you a heads up on that. But just wanted to say a couple of things about Erikson and his work. It is situated. He did a lot of his work in writing in the 60s and early 70s. And it's sort of like this classic, like I said, sequential stage model that moves people throughout sort of a lifetime of human development. And so you can see each stage kind of has one thing that it moves to. You complete that stage and then move on to the next one. And there's some results that come from each of those. And so it's different from Chickering and Reisser because it does say you need to finish one stage to move to the next. And so I think that's really, really important. And then it talks about different things that might be in, for lack of a better word, conflict with one another and the resulting, for lack of a better word, the resulting outcome that comes from it. So it's just one of the things to remember that as opposed to Chickering and Reisser, it is sequential. One stage follows the other. And to a certain degree, that's what he's saying. This is how people develop throughout the course of their life. Chickering and Reisser, however, they use this idea of vectors, and their model is more specific just to college-age students. So traditional-age college students, because again, they were writing their theory in the 60s and 70s, and did a reboot of it in the 90s. But so we're talking about traditional-age college students, and they're talking about a number of different vectors that students could be going through. Now, as opposed to Erikson, they're saying that students could be dealing with multiple vectors at one time. So they could be learning to manage emotions, developing competency, moving from autonomy to interdependence. Those could be all things that are happening at one time, or those could be things that a student is dealing at one point in time. And there might be some progression and regression as students move back and forth between the different vectors. So that's one important thing in terms of a distinction between the two models. The other thing is, this is maybe more a similarity, and we talked about this a little bit in the discussion over the weekend, is that both of these models are descriptive. This is what these various theorists saw when they identified and studied this population of students. For Erikson, humans in general; for Chickering and Reisser, for college students. So this is what they observed, and their theory is based on their observation. So it's descriptive, not prescriptive, and by that it means Chickering and Reisser are not saying this is the way college students develop, and as a result, you have to force students to move through various vectors and say, okay, well, we're going to put you in a spot, for example, if learning to manage emotions is really important, we're going to put you in a spot where we are going to test your emotions and your emotional stability and maturity because we know that's what you're supposed to do. That is not what they are saying. That, again, is just an example of the difference between theory and art of theory is descriptive or prescriptive. So it's something to remember. The other thing is related to that, and I mentioned kind of the time in the last century when these theories were written, and it would be easy to look at them and say, okay, they're really kind of old, and maybe as a result, because they're 60, 70 years old, even the rewrite of Chickering and Reisser happened well before the internet and social media and things like that. As a result, we could make the argument, well, learning to manage emotions or developing mature relationships or moving from autonomy to interdependence looks different for college-age students now than it did before because of the way technology has changed and the way people connect and the way people communicate. That is a fair critique of this particular model, but at the same time, it's just a reminder of theories when they were written and when they were proposed matter. Just simple age passing doesn't make a theory less helpful, and I'll give you a quick example. So for those of you who fly, there's a law of aerodynamics that is present every time you get in a plane and it takes off. And we could say, wow, well, I'm really glad, but that law comes from a theory, and that theory dates back to 1726. And we wouldn't say, well, because Isaac Newton first started talking about aerodynamics almost, what is that, 17, 18, 19, 20, 200, 300 years ago, it's no longer valid simply because it's old. No, when something is true, it's true, and it's true for a while. or in this case, true for eternity. So there can be things that are foundationally true and foundationally old, but something being old doesn't necessarily mean it's not true or accurate. So those are just a couple of things I wanted to point out about Erikson, Chickering, Reisser, and then also theory and what we think about it, and maybe some ways to think about the age of theory. So that's it for this week. If you have any questions, please reach out. You can email me through Canvas, and always here to answer any questions or anything that strikes you as odd or interesting or want more information or talk through. Please reach out and make a contact. Thanks.